Imagine you are driving in a completely new city. You're following that bright blue line on your GPS, and you are totally reliant on this digital map to tell you exactly where to turn, what speed to drive, and what to expect around the next corner.
Right, you feel completely secure.
Exactly. You feel secure, you are in control. But then suddenly, the road beneath your tires turns to dirt. The blue line on your screen just ends.
That is the worst feeling.
It really is. The device flashes, recalculating, and then the screen goes entirely blank. That immediate feeling you get in your chest, that spike of panic, that sense of stepping off the edge of the world.
We have definitely been conditioned to view that moment as a massive system failure.
We have. But today, we are going to completely dismantle that assumption. Welcome to the deep dive. The sources we're exploring today center around a deeply contemplative, philosophical document titled Where Predictions End, Living Beyond the Known Map.
It is such a rich text.
It really is.
Yeah.
And the core premise here is that we live in a reality that is absolutely obsessed with data, algorithms, forecasting. We are desperate to know what happens next.
Oh, constantly.
Right. But there is a threshold where every single system's models just stop working. And all that predictive confidence completely collapses.
What's fascinating here is that the text insists this collapse is not a void. It's not a failure of intelligence or a reason to panic. It is actually a doorway.
A doorway to what, exactly?
Well, according to the document, the moment where predictions end is the exact place where reality resumes its original texture. It becomes, as the text describes it, wild, responsive, alive.
I love that phrasing.
Yeah. And fundamentally ungovernable by prior data.
And, if you are listening to this on your commute right now, your brain is currently predicting the traffic patterns, the behavior of the driver next to you, even the structure of this conversation.
If it couldn't do that, you'd be paralyzed.
Exactly. So we are going to explore why sitting in that space where you don't know what comes next isn't actually a threat to your survival. It is actually the shape of aliveness.
That's a great way to put it.
But before we get to what lives beyond the map, we really need to understand why we are so relentlessly hardwired to predict in the first place. I mean, why is the human brain so obsessed with figuring out the next 5 seconds?
It really comes down to basic survival and economy. To predict is fundamentally just extending the past forward.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the source says that prediction is essentially an act of faith in patterns, right?
Yes, exactly. It is the biological assumption that what has happened before is going to continue shaping what comes next.
Yeah.
And the text makes a point to say that this isn't a flawed or unintelligent system. It's deeply necessary.
Because if we didn't have it, we'd never get anything done.
Right. Your nervous system predicts that the floor will hold your weight, so you don't have to consciously calculate the structural integrity of the wood with every single step you take.
That sounds exhausting.
It would be impossible. Your mind predicts that a conversation will follow a known grammar. Without this predictive mechanism, human consciousness would be completely overwhelmed. The text says that without prediction, every blink is a revelation, every breath a gamble. We predict so we can function in a chaotic world.
I was actually thinking about this, like the autocomplete feature on your phone's keyboard, but applied to your entire reality.
Oh, that's a brilliant comparison.
Yeah, you type, "I am going to thee," and your phone instantly suggests store. It saves you time. It saves you effort. But the catch, and this seems like a massive catch, is that the autocomplete is only guessing based on what you have typed in the past.
Right. It doesn't know what you actually want to say today.
Exactly. It literally forces you to build today entirely out of yesterday's vocabulary. You are recycling the past to construct the present.
That is a highly accurate way to visualize it. And this brings us to the profound neuroscience angle that the source explores. Contemporary neuroscience has really converged on this model of the brain as a literal prediction machine.
Because we usually think of our eyes and ears as like video cameras, right?
We do. We tend to think of human perception as just passively taking in the light and sound happening around us. But it's actually the exact opposite. At every single moment, your brain is generating probabilistic maps of what is about to happen.
Wow.
Yeah, and it only uses incoming sensory information to correct those maps in real time. So what we call experience is, in reality, just experienced expectation. We are walking around inside a world constructed from prior probability.
Wait, let me stop you there. Because if my brain is just constantly projecting a movie of the past and calling it the present, well, that sounds incredibly dangerous.
How do you mean?
If you are only predicting from what you have already survived, you can't predict from what you haven't yet encountered. You're completely locked in a closed loop.
Exactly. And that is the trap the document warns about. Because a predictive model is really only as good as the data it was trained on.
Right.
Think about how this plays out in human behavior. A nervous system that was trained in scarcity is going to predict scarcity everywhere.
Even in a room full of abundance.
Precisely. A nervous system shaped by abandonment will predict abandonment in a perfectly secure relationship. If a body has lived in chronic threat, its prediction engine generates a threat-weighted map and calls it reality.
Oh, wow. The text actually calls prediction retrospective intelligence wearing a forward-facing mask.
Which is such a chilling point.
It is, because if our brains are just constantly auto-completing reality based on our past traumas or habits, how do we ever experience anything genuinely new? If the system is closed, how does anything fresh get in?
That is the exact tension the document pivots to, because the answer to experiencing the new lies in very specific categories of human experience that completely short-circuit those prediction engines.
Categories that exist in systematic defiance of prediction.
Exactly.
The source identifies 4 specific things here: transformation, grace, love, and creation.
Yes.
Now, I have to be honest, when I hit this list, I immediately push back on one of them.
Love.
Wait,
Isn't love predictable?
a lot of modern psychology would say yes. Right. I mean, biology tells us it's just chemistry driving us to mate, or it's just repeating how we bonded with our parents in early childhood. We look for familiar patterns. That feels like the ultimate autocomplete to me.
That is a very natural pushback, and the text actually anticipates that exact clinical view of love. It specifically separates true love from attachment or chemistry or the rehearsal of prior bonding.
So how does it define true love then?
It defines it in its original form as a recognition across time. It's that meeting that feels less like a beginning and more like a return. Prediction cannot generate that kind of love because prediction operates on the surface level of pattern matching.
I see. So it's not looking at a resume of traits.
No, the text argues that the soul knows before the mind has data. Think of a moment where your body completely orients to a person before your mind has even formed a narrative or gathered any stats about who they are.
Okay, knowing without the data to back it up yet, that shifts the perspective.
It does. It acknowledges that there are deep layers of knowing our predictive apparatus was simply never equipped to reach.
And I suppose that same logic applies to transformation and grace. The text draws a very sharp line between incremental change and true transformation.
Incremental change is entirely predictable.
Right, it's just updating your habits, like going to the gym more often. But true transformation is described as a complete rupture.
Yes, and that word rupture is key. Incremental change is just rearranging the furniture in your existing house.
Well, transformation is a house burning down.
Exactly. It is a rupture where the existing model literally has no home for the new self. Imagine someone whose entire nervous system is built around a specific high-pressure career, and suddenly that career vanishes.
The old model just cannot compute the new reality.
Right. You cannot predict transformation because it's not a recombination of your old traits. It's an encounter with the genuinely new.
And then there's grace. The text notes that across almost all traditions, grace is defined by its unearned arrival.
Unearned and uncaused.
Right. It completely breaks the cause and effect autocomplete. It doesn't obey any logic of deservingness. It says grace arrives in the gaps when the strategizing mind is finally exhausted.
Exactly. When you have mapped out every possible solution, when your prediction engine has run 1,000 simulations and none of them work, your ego finally gives up.
It surrenders.
Yes, and it is only in that exact moment when the predictive apparatus completely stops spinning that grace is able to enter.
Okay, so if transformation and grace happen to us, what about the things we are supposed to intentionally make? That brings us to the 4th defiance: creation.
Which is a huge paradigm shift.
It is, because if true creation cannot be predicted, how do artists or writers or innovators actually do their jobs?
Right.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because the source offers a radical definition of creation. It says creation is not production. It is not execution.
Production is just generating what is expected. You have a blueprint, you build the desk.
But true creation is a descent into formlessness. The artist genuinely does not know what they are making until it is made.
That's because a creative act is an encounter, not a process.
An encounter.
Yes. The work isn't built brick by brick. If an artist is truly creating, they are stepping into the silence and waiting to encounter something. The work is received from the unmapped.
Which explains why so many artists say their best work just arrived from somewhere else.
Exactly. It wasn't logically deduced. It came through a gap in the predictive machinery.
I was trying to think of an analogy for this, and it's like, it's not about building a louder radio transmitter. It's about turning off all the static in the room so you can finally hear a faint, distant frequency.
That is a perfect way to look at it. It aligns perfectly with the source's concept of maximum subtraction as a creative method.
Maximum subtraction.
Yeah. When we think of creative intelligence, we instinctively think of adding more inspiration, more data. But maximum subtraction means you have to remove the overstimulated surface mind.
You have to quiet the noise.
You have to subtract what the text calls the predictive chatter that colonizes attention and calls itself thinking. Beneath all that anxious chatter is the deep listening that true creation actually requires.
But let's be real for a second. Trying to quiet that predictive chatter sounds utterly impossible today. We live in an era where our attention is colonized every second. How are we supposed to practically achieve this maximum subtraction?
It is intensely difficult, but the text points out that ancient wisdom traditions have actually been teaching us how to do this for millennia.
Right, turning off the prediction engine isn't some new age productivity hack.
Not at all. It is the core of historical contemplative practices.
The text lists quite a few diverse frameworks that point to this kind of knowing outside the predictive chain.
It does, from all over the world.
There's the Vedic distinction between conceptual knowledge, which is jnana, and direct knowing, prajna. There's Buddhist non-conceptual awareness, the Yoruba concept of ori, or personal divine consciousness.
And the Sufi tradition, which views the heart as a literal receiving organ.
Right. The brain predicts, but the heart receives the present moment exactly as it is.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the text also weaves in goddess traditions, which are incredibly striking. Across various cultures, the primordial feminine represents the force that precedes form.
The text refers to it as the dark water, right?
Yes, the dark water. It's older than data. Water that is completely dark has no visible features. You cannot map it or predict what is swimming in it. It represents the living spontaneity of an uncaptured source.
So bringing this all the way down to earth, what does this all mean for you, the listener, right now? Like on a stressed out Tuesday morning?
What all these contemplative practices offer, fundamentally, is deprediction.
Deprediction.
Yeah. We often think of stillness as just passively relaxing, but the text says stillness is actually a radical act of perceptual recalibration.
Okay, recalibration. So how do we do that?
It's the physical practice of pausing in the gap between a stimulus and your habitual response. When you get that stressful email, your brain wants to immediately map it onto the past. It wants to trigger the autocomplete of panic.
So deprediction is consciously refusing to hit the autocomplete button.
Exactly. You pause. You hold your models lightly. It allows you to have a moment of actual encounter with what is happening right now before you classify it.
And the text takes this into how we relate to the world, too. It says living past the edge means treating reality as a relationship, not a math problem.
Relationships inherently exceed prediction.
The document has this beautiful line. The beloved doesn't behave to your model. The divine doesn't arrive on your schedule. And the body doesn't cooperate with the mind's narrative.
If you are just interacting with your predictive model of your partner, you aren't actually interacting with them at all.
You're interacting with a ghost of your own past.
Exactly. You have to loosen that grip to encounter the real living person in front of you.
As we bring this deep dive to a close, I really want to synthesize this journey because it completely flips our definition of intelligence upside down.
It really does.
We started by looking at how our brains just extend the past forward. But the text reveals that true intelligence isn't just forward extrapolation, predicting the future from the past.
No, it's not about gathering more data.
Right. True intelligence is a downward descent. It's dropping down to a layer capable of genuine surprise. Like the intelligence of a child before language puts everything in boxes, or an elder who has just released the need to know.
This raises an important question, and it's a challenge for the listener based on the idea that our bodies and loved ones constantly defy our models.
Okay, what's the challenge?
Tomorrow, when your body acts up or a loved one does something entirely unexpected, what if you didn't treat it as an annoyance or a failure of your plans? What if, instead, you viewed that exact moment of friction as an invitation?
An invitation.
Yes. Proof that you have finally stepped off the known map and are standing in the presence of the genuinely real.
You are officially off the digital map. The blue line is ended. But instead of panicking, you can finally look up and see the wild, alive world right in front of you. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We encourage you to rest in the absence of knowing, hold your models lightly, and stay curious.